Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Monday's edition of the dceu Daily. Let's try and make some sense of these Flash movie leaks in the past couple of weekends. There's some very, very interesting leaks with some truth buried underneath them. The Zod and Feora kind of revelation that they're going to be in this movie has upset a lot of people, because some people are worried about what kind of changes will be enacted in this movie because of their appearances. I'm just excited that they're there and Man of Steel is being represented. But the entirety of the DC Extended Universe thus far will be represented in the Flash movie, which is very, very exciting for me. For example, we know that General Swanwick, aka Martian Manhunter, will also be in this film. So there's going to be a lot of DC characters in this film. For example, we know that Shazam is going to be in this movie. Who knows what kind of role he's got to play? Probably a small one. We know that Wonder Woman is in this movie. There's been no confirmation of Jason Momoa's Aquaman or Henry Cavill's Superman at this point. And of course, Henry Cavill's Superman right now is a bone of contention with fans. So there's been a lot. You know, the Batgirl, streaming movie has been a bone of contention as well. Would Batfleck be in it? Would it be Michael Keaton? We now know that Michael Keaton is definitely in the Batgirl movie, and it looks like Ben Affleck isn't. Right? Ben Affleck has come out and said he's done after The Flash, saying the Snyder Cut and the Flash movie were a great way to end his part as Batman. So it looks like Affleck's done. He's come out. He's gone on and on and on in the past few weeks how he just didn't want to do it anymore. So I think it's pretty simple. Whether you want more Batfleck or not, he simply isn't in the place to do it anymore. The question is, how do they end his Batman role? Do they kill him off? Do they shove him in a pocket universe? I think I need to explain to you what the Flash movie is as a film. We know we're going to see a celebratory element like Spider-Man No Way Home, where we see the DCEU characters that have been, introduced thus far. We see other kind of multiverse, we see other Earths from the multiverse as well, other characters that we've seen in the past in DC live action. There's a lot going on in this movie. But in terms of its narrative, the narrative of the film really is, it's Back to the Future too. So you can see Ben Affleck's Batman and Bruce Wayne and Michael Keaton's Batman and Bruce Wayne as Doc Brown. So Ben Affleck is Doc Brown in 1985. Are you with me so far? And then Michael Keaton is Doc Brown in 1955, if you like. And this is going to be a similar relationship. Barry's relationship with both versions of this Batman are very important and very similar to Marty McFly's relationship with Doc Brown, who was actually inspired by Doctor Who. I don't know if you actually knew that. So that's where we're going with this. So what will probably happen, and what I'm hearing is probably going to happen, when he fixes Flashpoint, he goes back to the he thinks he's going back to where he left off of, but there are several changes in the DC Extended Universe, and Batfleck isn't there anymore. And it's a bit like Back to the Future 2, when Doc Brown vanishes, and in Back to the Future 3, what happens is Marty goes after him in the Old West. Was it 1885? I can't remember the exact year. So you with me? So Ezra Miller's The Flash isn't going to take this lying down, just like Marty McFly didn't take it lying down when he obviously saw lightning, vanish the DeLorean. So in the future of the DC Extended Universe, that's going to be Barry's obsession to find Batfleck, just like Marty wanted to find Doc Emmett Brown. So there's a very similar thread here. That's the relationship between Ezra Miller's The Flash, Barry Allen, and Keaton's Batman and Affleck's Batman. I think this is where we're going with this. So, and Andy Muschietti has kind of confirmed this. He said there's going to be a very emotional relationship, that Batfleck's role in this film is very, very considerable and substantial emotionally, because they do make sure that this is a Flash movie. Even though we're going to see loads of DC characters, they really do keep Barry Allen, Ezra Miller, as the heartbeat of this movie. It still is his movie, and I think if they manage to achieve that, that will be a criticism that people can't bring upon the film, because I think a lot of people have tried to bring that accusation to the film, and Andy Muschietti has said, no, this is Barry Allen's film, but we needed to use his abilities for this film to change the DC Extended Universe. Some people don't believe the DC Extended Universe needs a rebrand and a reboot. I think it does. Commercially, it has no viability any longer, and it needs something. It needs that magic. Spider-Man No Way Home has brought that magic back to the MCU, because since Endgame, people have been calling it Phase 4, right? Phase 4, Phase 4, the MCU. But Spider-Man No Way Home has brought that excitement back to the franchise. The problem is, can they keep it? Because that's Sony's side of Marvel. They're the ones making these kind of decisions, so that's interesting as well. So we'll keep a look on that and compare it to what's going on in the DC Extended Universe. So this is how I see it playing out, that The Flash has a similar relationship with both these versions of Batman to how Marty McFly has with Doc Brown in Back to the Future. And I think Back to the Future 2 is a very interesting film. I was watching it last night, and I was thinking, this is what they're going to do with these versions of Batman. He's going to have a similar relationship, and it kind of come to my head, you know, because obviously Affleck could just be vanished when Barry goes back, right, after Flashpoint. So then he becomes obsessed because he's responsible for this. He went back to save his mother. He went to the past and he changed history, and because of that, Ben Affleck's Batman is gone. But Michael Keaton's Batman has replaced him. And this is a problem to Barry because, you know, it's that Batman who recruited him into the Justice League. They have a great kind of younger brother, older brother relationship, and he's devastated about this. So I think in the future movies he's going to be obsessed with finding Batfleck, and I think that's where they're going with this. And if that happens, and if I am right, I'm very excited about that kind of narrative thread that they could be going down. Until we see this film, it's difficult to make a judgment, because this is a film, when it ends, it has to be something that resonates with fans, something that says, you know what, this has left the franchise in a much more exciting place than it was before this film started, before I saw this movie. And as I've explained before, if this film doesn't work, then it's goodbye DCEU, it's goodbye Snyderverse, no chance of the Snyderverse being restored, and the DCEU is dead. They start again with new actors, new creatives, someone new running it. It's as simple as that. If The Flash flops, the DC Extended Universe is finished. Of course, the Batman trilogy would still carry on, because it has nothing to do with the DCEU. That's the beauty of this, if you like. They're not risking Matt Reeves' universe, so putting him in his own Earth is actually genius, if you think about it, and I'm really looking forward to that film. So this film is, you know, this film, The Flash, is continuing to get people intrigued and some people angry, but what it's doing is what these films should always do several months before they're released, and create conversations. Now, whatever those conversations are, positive or negative, it doesn't really matter. So we don't know what the full roster of DC characters is in the Flash movie, but we do know there's a hell of a lot of people in this who haven't even been announced yet. And I think we can now say that My Time to Shine, this Twitter account that was formed in October of last year, is full of shit, because it went from leaks to now telling us things we already know, like exclusive. Ben Affleck's Batman isn't in Batgirl. Well, mate, we already knew that, because Ben Affleck has pretty much told us he's done after The Flash. So I hope you can all agree with me that this account that you believe has had some good, you know, good predictions and good, you know, leaks with Marvel, actually is full of shit and doesn't really know anything that anybody else does. So I think we can put them to bed now, and next time they come up with a leak, we can say, you're full of shit. I'm not liking you, I'm not commenting, I'm going to ignore you until you disappear off the platform because you're full of shit. Dishonest people seem to be rewarded on the internet, and that's okay, but I'm not going down that direction. I thought you guys may be interested in this. Now, McFarlane Toys have released some images of the drifter version of Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne in the Batman, and I think this is interesting to look at. Now, it's kind of interesting because in Batman Begins, Batman is a drifter with Christian Bale. In Man of Steel, you know, Clark Kent is a kind of drifter in that film at the beginning as well. So we're going down the same narrative here. Very, very interesting. Is he just a drifter in Gotham, or is he going around the world to learn things about the criminal fraternity as Christian Bale's Batman was in Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins? Thus far, I think that's my favourite Batman film of all time. So he's got something over his face so you can't recognise him. He's got kind of that kind of jacket on as well. And so you don't really know who he is, but he can also obviously hold himself together. He's probably got a few weapons. There's probably pockets there as well. So a very interesting element of the Batman movie, and it will be interesting how much the drifter version of Bruce Wayne plays a part in the Batman. James Gunn isn't interested in being the DCEU's Kevin Feige by Rachel Abernathy of Screen Rant. I think we could have told Rachel this and saved her the trouble of writing an article, because there was never a time when Kevin Feige was, sorry, let me say that again, there was never a time when James Gunn was going to run the DC Extended Universe. That's not his strength. He's a filmmaker. So anyway, let's see what he has to say. Thanks to the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, James Gunn has become a major creative voice in the DC Extended Universe, but he definitely doesn't want to lead it, by Rachel Abernathy. Though some fans might want it to happen, James Gunn has no interest in leading the DCEU in a Kevin Feige-esque role. With Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and its sequel, Gunn cemented himself as a distinctive voice in the comic book genre. However, he later proved it wasn't only the MCU where he could flourish, as Gunn won over DC fans last year with the Suicide Squad. The R-rated blood-soaked movie has been heralded as one of the best superhero movies of 2021, and brought Gunn's irreverent style to the typically gritty DCEU in bombastic fashion. Though Gunn is currently working on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 for Marvel, he's far from done with the DCEU. Even before the Suicide Squad was released, Gunn had developed a spin-off series centered on John Cena's character from the film Peacemaker. Will premiere on HBO Max later this week and further expand upon this corner of the DCEU. Beyond that, it isn't clear what Gunn has in the works, but he has hinted that he has other spin-offs brewing. Also, he's hinted that he's going to be working in other corners of the DC Extended Universe, which is exciting. Gunn's successful entry into the DCEU has earned him the respect of fans, some of which are interested in seeing him take on even bigger creative role in the franchise. In fact, Drew Ditch, in his review of Peacemaker, even boldly suggested Warner Brothers should put the DCEU in Gunn's hands. Yeah, I did read that post entirely. Gunn responded on social media by sharing his gratitude for the sentiment, but added he has no desire to take on such a role. Thanks for that compliment, he wrote, but I would never want Walt at DC or Kevin at Marvel's job. So that's great. That's great for him to be so honest and direct, and I didn't expect anything else from James Gunn. First of all, he's obviously very grateful to Walter Hamada, someone he friendly called, you know, he's like calling him Walt, so they're obviously very, very close. And obviously he can see an issue with people saying this guy should be running the DCEU, pretty much saying that Walter Hamada shouldn't. And so he was quickly to disperse anything, and, you know, just in case there was a misunderstanding with Warner Brothers and Walter Hamada that he's after his job. So he quickly came out and he made his position clear, and that's great. The DCEU has evolved quite a bit over the years, from the darker connected nature of Zack Snyder's early contributions to the more standalone features of today. The DCEU has seemingly stopped trying to emulate the MCU and instead carving its own niche for itself. Yet she keeps on saying this, that the DCEU is just doing standalone. That's not the future for the DC Extended Universe. Of course, there will be some standalone movies, but the Justice League universe, the Justice League movies, if you like, with those characters in them, will be very connective. So she's wrong. Basically, she's wrong. Carving its own niche for itself. Right now, Walter Hamada is the closest thing to a Kevin Feige the DCEU has, though many fans still wish for Snyder to return to the franchise and oversee its creative side. Regardless of whether or not that ever happens, one thing is clear, that it is not a job Gunn wants. Well, whether he wants it or not, he was never going to get it anyway, so it's irrelevant. When considering Gunn's career, this isn't too surprising. Even while working within the constraints of a studio-backed franchise, he has managed to bring his own creative vision to every project he's worked on. It seems likely he would rather focus on his own projects and steer numerous others. While a DCEU entirely under Gunn's control would be interesting to see. He couldn't do the job. He doesn't have the tools. He's a filmmaker. He couldn't do it. Kevin Feige isn't a director, right? He's a producer. He has the talent to run a franchise. You know, James Gunn just wouldn't be able to do it. It's probably better to have him be one creative voice among others in the franchise. That way, the DCEU can include numerous other creatives and build a truly unique universe. Well, Walter Hamada is in charge for the time being. I'm not saying that Walter Hamada will remain in charge and his job is secure. As we've discussed many times on this channel, Walter Hamada needs this year to be utterly successful. It's his vision, everyone. The Flash reboot, Flashpoint, it's his idea. If it fails, he's done, and the DC Extended Universe is done. There's no debate. There's no debate. And everything that comes with the DC Extended Universe, yes, including the Snyderverse, as I said on the top of the show. If the Flash movie fails, and I'll repeat myself, and I'm happy to repeat myself, if the Flash movie fails, we are done with the DC Extended Universe. They let it go. It's all fucked. It's all done. They leave it for a few years, or maybe they'll start straight away, and they'll start with a new vision, with a brand new creative. And of course, David Zaslav and Discovery will make sure of that. So, it's basically A, a successful year for the DCEU, or B, we knock it down and start again. And in my opinion, we probably should have started again after Justice League, but that's not going to happen. This is a brave and bold move, what they're attempting to do to rebrand and reboot the franchise. It's no mean feat. And if they're successful with it, they will certainly have my respect. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. Now, as from tomorrow, I should be, all being well, in the UK, so I don't know how frequently I'll be able to do these videos, but I'll do them as often as I can. I should be over there for around a month, so I shall see you over in the UK. Till then, goodbye, au revoir, goodbye, auf Wiedersehen.